My name is Rhythm and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Giden. Giden is a platform to help businesses in the home industry collect customer video reviews to drive engagement and convert more sales through sharing authentic customer experiences. And before we jump in, I would love to meet all of you guys, so feel free to let me know in the comments if you're a designer, homeowner, or a brand, and please tell me where are you tuning in from. And I would love to have Coolikan join us now. And let's see, it says waiting. And Coolikan, I'm really excited to have them here, Well, look at these guys. They are here. And we have another person joining us, Athena, Pankaj, Segal. We have another person joining in. Hey guys, how are you? Look at that. 5 people. I think this is the Coolikan storm. Lock and Mortis. Wonderful. Well, I'm really excited to have Coolican Company join us today to talk about their design philosophy and their journey as branding themselves as Toronto's first small batch manufacturer, and how the only makers in the city whose sole practice has been to produce limited run and modern handmade furniture has expanded into working with designers to develop unique solutions for retail and hospitality environments. So guys, how about you introduce yourselves and tell us about yourselves and how you met and how you started Coolikan?
Sure. You hear me all right?
Yep, it's good.
Cool. I'm Peter, Coolikan. I founded the company back in 2014, 2015. And yeah, this is Steve Dalrymple. Nathan
Steve. Hey, Nate.
Steve is our, I guess you could say, our creative director. He does a lot of design work. He does a lot of the marketing and sales stuff. Nate is our production director. He does most of the management of the studio and production. And yeah, the 3 of us keep this thing alive. We wear a lot of hats. We do a lot of different things. But yeah, maybe you guys can speak a little bit more to what you do.
Yeah, you guys can maybe, Steve, Nate, you can start with, what's the best part of your job and what is the most challenging part of your job at Coolikan?
Sure. Yeah, so most of my day is occupied by managing the production of actual furniture in the shop. So making sure we have materials, making sure we have parts on hand, making sure that things are coming together, executed in a really high quality fashion, and on time. So I'd say the most enjoyable part of my job is that I get to build furniture at a really high quality, which is something I'm just generally passionate about and have been for a really long time. And that's grown into a managerial over the last few years, which is one of the more challenging aspects, although a welcome new challenge, where I just have to keep a lot of different information floating in my mind, make sure that we got all the materials we need, we've got all the parts we need, we have people like ready to assemble furniture, ready to sand and finish it, and making sure that all our deadlines are being monitored.
And like Nate, were you like always considering a career in furniture design?
Yeah, for quite a long time. I've been a woodworker since I was a teenager, kind of starting off in my dad's workshop, and it's always been the kind of organic path forward for me. I really thought I would end up where I did end up ultimately, but through being really passionate about doing this work and getting to know really wonderful people like Peter and Steven, it's kind of grown into this really, really wonderful career.
Nate was the first person who came on board, and yeah, it was pretty clear from the get-go that it was going to be a good fit. Nate has a memory that allows him to keep all of these moving parts sort of organized, which is like, I have the worst memory, so that was really complimentary.
That's awesome. And how about you, Steve? What brings you to Coolikan, and what is it that you do at Coolikan?
What brings me to Coolikan? That's a. I can tell you what brought me to Coolikan in the past. When I was a design student, I saw the Coolican Company booth at IDS. This was maybe 7 years ago, and I thought it was the best booth at the show. And I thought, one day I want to work with that guy. I want to work with that company. And
That's
here
awesome.
I am, just, I guess I put that intention out there, and now I have the fortune to be working with Peter and Nathan in this capacity. So it's pretty great. That's what brought me here. In addition to just loving furniture, I mean, I have had a previous career. I was a high school teacher for almost 10 years in Toronto, and I spent most of my time looking at furniture in my free time and sort of longingly imagining myself as a furniture maker or designer. So now that I'm doing it, the most exciting part of the job, in a way, is just I get to look at furniture all day, and I don't feel like I'm doing anything wrong. Like, it's part of. So,
like,
in a way, when I had my other job, I felt like I was playing hooky or something, and now I feel like I'm doing exactly what I should be doing. You asked about what is the most challenging aspect of the job. I mean, I would say it boils down to details. Everything we do is ultimately, everything that we put out into the world, we have spent hours haggling over the finest details. A 1/16 of an inch, just trying to nail a proportional relationship. So that's exciting, but it's also very challenging. It's sort of, it feels like there's no room for error. And personally, in my role as sort of the, managing our Instagram account, for example, I take a lot of photography, and I'm not a photographer. So Pete said we wear all sorts of different hats, and I try to wear photography, and it's a challenge because I think we all are called to do things that are not part of our natural skill set, or that we're not trained to do.
Yeah.
It's the most challenging part, but it's also can be the most rewarding part. And that capacity to be able to sort of switch hats throughout the day or throughout the week keeps you on your toes. It keeps you really keeps you sharp. And yeah, most challenging, but also I think one of the most rewarding parts of doing what we do is that every day you come in and the thing you thought you were going to be doing might be entirely different. And for better or worse, you just got to figure it out.
Keeps things fresh. Never gets stale.
And so, like, Steve, like, I'm sure, how do you think your teaching background influences your work here at Coolikan? With wearing all these different hats and managing all these different people.
It's, I would say, in my role at Coolican Company, I do a lot of, I manage a lot of communications with other companies, fabricators, potential clients,
Business partners.
Sure. And I was an English teacher, so I spent a very long time thinking a lot about clear communication. Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably the most transferable skilled. Like I have a comfort level with communicating with people. And so that has really helped. And when I was a teacher, I spent every moment of staff meetings doodling on paper. So I have 10 years of ideas that I put onto paper and that I now contribute to this project that we have tapped into. Yeah.
And would you say, is that what, inspires your creativity, that 10 years of past doodling that you bring to Coolikan and furniture design?
Absolutely. I mean, I think anyone out there who is an artist or a designer, and I'm sure Peter and Nathan would agree that making marks on paper is often the best way to communicate an idea or to explore an idea initially. So absolutely.
Yeah. No, Mayo says, great things happen when you do what you love. And I clearly see that for the past few months, having worked with you guys. And something that Sophia also mentions here is that so much intention, and, they just love all the details in the works that you're putting together. And it's like Miles says in another comment, what a great team, a perfect mix, and they complement each other. And that's amazing. So how about you, Peter? I know I was doing some research on you and I found out that you studied economics.
Yeah, I did in economics and urban systems as well. Yeah.
And how do you think, what have you learned from that you bring here? Why did you leave that career behind or that path behind to start making furniture?
I mean, I think I knew pretty early on that I couldn't spend my life in front of a computer, and that I needed to be using my hands and doing something more creative. So I knew that I wasn't going to be able to pursue something in that vein. But I think it also gave me a bit of an edge when I started building furniture, to be able to kind of conceptualize and think about how processes work, how people think about the things that they bring into their home, how people think about making purchases, kind of this sort of background understanding of markets, and being able to understand that a lot of people in this field have a really sort of singular skill set in creating and maybe in building, and that's great. You need that singular skill set as well to be able to kind of get through that stuff. But having an understanding of how things are going to be sold and how things can be made in a way that is actually a viable business is an entirely different thing. I was able to apply some of that degree to be able to start Coolican Company and to be able to start making small batch furniture, rather than, I spent a couple years like bespoke, one-off custom pieces, and that's a really hard way to make a living.
Speaking of custom pieces, Sophia has a question for you guys. Will they ever see a two-legged hall table in your collection?
Yeah, I would think we would. We have the longest list of things that we need to get to, the things that we need. We have so many ideas and so many products that we want to put out there, but we also have limited resources. We have a limited amount of time. It's probably the primary one. And so we're kind of gradually making our way through the list. I think for the last 5 years, I've gotten emails and calls, people asking us to do a bar stool with a back. And it's been on the list for 5 years. And I think this year we'll probably be putting that out into the world, which is really exciting. But yeah, it just takes time. The Adelaide Bench that we're sitting on now is a prime example. We launched it as a 42-inch kind of standard size bench that was good for hallways, good as coffee tables, good as end of bed, and it could work at a table. But for for years we got questions about, could we make a longer one? Could we make a shorter one? And finally gotten around to doing that as well too. So if anybody has a longer bench or a shorter bench, that's a go. And hopefully we can probably take some of those details and turn them into a table with a console table or an entryway table.
No, that's amazing.
So,
Talking about collaborations, like I see like you collaborate with designers, you have your own ideas that you bring to life, and you also mentioned that you collaborate with a lot of prestigious big brands as well, like Canada Goose. So how does like brands, is it that you reach out to these brands or brands come to you for the collaboration? How do they find you guys? How does the process work, and how do you, expand your product line through such collaborations?
and we spend most of our time here, making furniture. So we don't spend that much time marketing, to be honest. We have our Instagram. We do try to do a show or two a year, which probably isn't going to happen this year. So most of it is people coming to us. We have a reputation and a nice display of products. So we're starting to do more and more of that, and I think that those opportunities are really exciting for us to be able to create new pieces for some specific.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that is definitely wonderful to have your product speak for yourself in the market, and you get the word of mouth that brings customers to your door. I think that's phenomenal. So what about you guys individually? Like today people and younger generations is almost talking about tech all the time. So in like 2020, what do you think is sexy about being a furniture manufacturer?
God, I don't know for the best people.
We're all too modest to talk about how sexy we are.
I mean, you guys do some like wonderful photo shoots. Like I would call that sexy. So there's definitely some kick to being a furniture manufacturer, So what do you tell to people who are still studying all this, and how do they position themselves, and what is still so sexy about being a craftsman?
I mean, in terms of, like, I'm not thinking about sexy as in, how someone might appear, but like more abstract, in a more abstract way. To me, there's something very sexy generally about people who are doing what they love and who get to spend their time doing that, and especially in a creative capacity. So from my perspective, yeah, like I think that extends to all kind of creative pursuits. To me, there's something very attractive about that. When you see people lost in their love of some pursuit, a creative pursuit. So to me, like that extends to furniture design. It feels very sexy because it's like fun.
I think it's also a lot about confidence, and I think part of that is sort of on a personal level, the confidence that we have as makers and designers. We're very confident at what we do, and we're not like shy about that. And then I think as that extends to the products, this stuff is made to last. There's a confidence in how it's made that we're not questioning whether it's going to be coming back and needing repairs because we know it's been made to an exceptional standard. And I think there's something sexy about that confidence.
No one to know also, So what do you think what are some of your favorite design features of this chair?
That's the Ekman Lounge.
Yep, the one that you guys are about to recently launch.
Yeah, brand spanking new.
Yeah. It's a take on the Edwin dining chair that it's probably 4 years old now.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of, it's the like comfortable, relaxed, oversized version of that chair. Do you guys have anything particularly at that chair that you?
Why don't we give our audience a little bit of a sneak peek of a real chair right now?
You can see it.
Ta-da! This is one of the
It's
first
beautiful.
6.
Wow.
That's a big,
yeah.
big chair. That's a beautiful chair.
One of my favorite features is simply the number of spindles. On the backrest, the Edwin dining chair has 6 spindles, and the Edwin lounge chair has. And for me, the 2 extra spindles make this feel like an encompassing kind of basket that kind of like holds you and encourages you to kind of lean back and relax. So for me, visually, I like the extra spindles.
It also gives you like a little bit more of like a, you can see, but you have, as a lounge chair, you know, if you're in conversation with somebody, you can sit.
I love that.
It's sideways, you can sit up front. So it's just got a little bit more.
Yeah, different postures.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that people ask is, what is your favorite wood? And where do you source it from?
So, I mean, pretty much, what, 90% of what we make is in white oak. That's an intentional choice based on obviously the aesthetics of it. It's a really beautiful species of wood, but it's also exceptionally durable, and we are able in the white oak to narrow down the proportions of the parts so that we can achieve finer details of crispness without sacrificing durability or strength, because the structural integrity of that material is already providing that.
Awesome.
As for your question about where we're sourcing it, whenever we can, we're trying to source all of our hardwoods from Ontario, but the reality of how we're obtaining this material is that it's often difficult to trace where it's come from because it's come through several different suppliers on its way to us. We work with a supplier up in Drayton, near Owen Sound, and they source a lot of their stuff from Ontario as well as the Northeast U.S., so Pennsylvania, Ohio, New England area.
And what do you think, with COVID, what part has COVID played to change your manufacturing and go-to-market strategy?
That, to be totally honest, not much has changed in terms of production. We're still a small shop. I think the biggest change that COVID has had is it's clear to us that more people are investing in their homes, investing in their spaces, that I think they're spending more time there, and so we've had a lot more, we've had a lot of orders, we've had a lot of people reaching out. So in that sense, it's caused us to have to think about how we can be more productive and how we can grow our production without sacrificing the quality and the standards that we always want to meet.
Yeah. So as you mentioned growth, right? How do you plan on maintaining the feeling of authenticity as you grow from being a small batch manufacturer?
I think you just got to be authentic. I don't think we will change much. Nothing's going to change in terms of what our approach to design is. The products that we love and that we want to put out into the world, they're going to be the same products. It's more about how can we find efficiency in those in the production of those things so that the quality remains the same. And I think if things get bigger, it's going to be a matter of scaling the size of what we're doing now rather than changing the variables. I think the materials will be the same.
Yeah.
Products will have.
We have a question from the audience, and they ask, how do you guys plan on scaling?
How do we plan on scaling?
Yeah.
As it stands now, we do some outsourcing. So we'll probably keep trying to explore good, quality partners with that kind of thing. We've learned a lot, I think, in the last couple of years about how to work with other manufacturers. To Steve's comment about communication, we've learned a lot in that regard. So there'll be a bit of that. I think we also want to make sure that we don't grow too quickly, because I think you can make a lot of mistakes when you grow too quickly, and we don't want to do that. I don't know if you guys have anything to add.
Yeah, I think one of the sort of internal questions we've had to ask ourselves is if production increases, if output of furniture increases, do we turn into like a factory, or we know a small batch furniture company that started out as? And I think for us, that's a thing for navigating. It's not necessarily a reality we're heading towards, but we can ensure that everything that goes out the door has an expert set of eyes on it, so that it's a good quality. And once you scale to a certain size, it's harder to track things.
I think also, we've set things up. The production that we use, it has a lot more capacity. The batches might get bigger, but we're really going to get away from the idea that the quality of the details and the final processing of these parts is done at a workbench by a craftsperson. And if you have years, you add another workbench and you do that work well. It's not. I don't think it's rocket science. We're not looking at buying robots. At the end of the day, it's still solid wood furniture and it needs a hand touch.
In the audience, they also ask, who do you guys consider as your closest competition, and why and how are you different?
Is that you asking that, or is that somebody from our competition?
That question is from Mayo.
I don't feel like we generally concern ourselves that much with competition. I think in the space of small batch, high quality furniture, I kind of related to the idea of why are there 3 coffee shops on the same corner? And that's because there are 3 coffee shops and people know to walk there for coffee. Likewise, with this type of furniture, the more companies that are doing it and doing it well and giving it a good reputation, the more people are aware of buying high quality furniture being a thing at all. So the more people doing this, the better off we are, because there's more people spreading that. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about executing the best quality design and the best quality piece. So we're not all that nervous about competition in that way. I think the greatest competition, in a sense, are companies that are out who are using this model or this concept in their marketing and not in their production, and giving it a bad rep, which you don't see, to be honest.
Yeah.
Steve, do you have anything to say for that? Anything to add to that?
Peter used the word authenticity earlier, and I think that you know, I would agree with him about sort of not like that we don't spend a lot of time thinking about competition, because in a way that would mean that we're focusing on other people's work and other people's identity and message and what they put out in the world. We spend a lot of time focusing on just the honing of our own message and our own work, and just ensuring that it's as, you know, high quality and as clear as possible. So I think that rather than like talking about competition amongst ourselves, we thought about just how do we be authentic and you know, stick to our core values of like doing high quality, highly functional, elegant work.
We have a question from Stefan asking, can you talk about the development of your production workflow and how do you approach production of a new piece?
Sure. I mean, so because we're designing and building everything in-house, a lot of our production actually comes from the design process. You know, Steve is working on a chair. He's back and forth between the computer and the shop, prototyping. You know, it's a lot of rapid prototyping. And through that process, that informs a lot about how something is made. You learn about, you know, how many of those joints have you cut in the last week? Like 30?
Yeah, a lot. It's very rapid. This is the key word. The process of for any piece of furniture is just like sketching, computer drafting, banging together pieces of wood just to determine if they look good, if relationships are right, and if they don't, sketching, computer work, banging together two different pieces of wood. It's essentially like, that's kind of like an oversimplification of it, but that's the process until we get to something we like, and then that's it.
But yeah, through that process, you end up learning a lot about the best way to do something. You cut 30 joints, and by the 30th, you're like, oh, this is going to be the thing. This is going to be the way to do it. That's going to be, you know, half the time, and then we'll design it. You know, it could be a series of jigs that allow us to make that part as efficiently as possible in the quantities that are right. So then the quantities are looking at sort of like how many of these can we make at a time that kind of maximizes our efficiency without harming the quality. And a lot of that is done on spreadsheets and plugging in numbers of parts and how long it takes to make a part, and then basically finding those optimum levels. And then, you know, from that part, it's how do we get all the parts and how do we get all the parts together, and then, I mean, that's a process that goes every single time we do a batch. In the same way that cut a joint, you learn more about it. Every time you do a batch, you learn new things. The Palmerston School, which we made hundreds of those. Nate and I had a 20-minute talk yesterday about how we think we can improve how those are glued together, how we do the assembly of the gluing together. And those conversations happen all the time. Yeah.
Something like I would like, you know, highlight is that something you mentioned to me was the durability of your products. And why is it when somebody has an intent, a different intent to look for Coolikan or a furniture like Coolikan, is that they're investing in your furniture, right? And like I would love to have you guys, you know, share your thoughts on when people are picking furniture, even though trends change every 4 to 5 years. So if they are spending, you know, a $500,000, $700,000 on a piece of furniture, how should they treat it? And how do they make sure it is something that they're investing in for a long period of time?
Yeah, I mean, I think our consumer culture has been shortening the time span on everything. It's like more, new. And I think that we, and hopefully society as a whole is coming to terms with the fact that that's not the way that we can move forward. And in order to make furniture that isn't going to be thrown away in 2 years, you have to put a level of quality into it. And to put that level of quality into it, you also have to make sure that people are going to actually want it aesthetically in their space. And furniture is a space that lends itself well to that. Things, heirloom furniture is a thing, and while we've kind of forgotten about it in the last couple of decades, it's not a pair of shoes. So it can last, and if you design things that will fit spaces now and in the future, then it makes sense to spend more money. It makes sense to invest in the real thing, because you can look at like a Hans Wegner chair that's could be worth more today than it was when it was purchased. There are a lot of examples in the furniture world of that kind of thing. And there's, it lasts.
And so, like the trend of direct consumer shopping, D2C, has been increasing. And because of COVID, like you mentioned, people are spending more time in homes and they're shopping more online. So as a company, what tips would you have for people when they're buying furniture online? How do they make sure that this is what they want, this is the right quality, without even being able to actually check it out in person?
Well, that's a good question.
I think probably knowing what you want and knowing, feeling free to ask as many questions as you can. Apart from photography that we have on our website, and technical drawings and tear sheets and finish samples and all of the things that we put on our website, there are always very specific, very personal questions that people often, or personal needs that people have of a piece of furniture. So, the most successful interactions with direct-to-customer through our website, I think often involve a lot of questions, dialogue about the piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're, as like a broad general rule, I would stay away from larger marketplaces. I think that's like a pretty quick, if the place where you're buying the furniture, you can't call somebody and question about it, there is just too many degrees of separation and too few opportunities for feedback, and feedback to the manufacturer. They're not getting that feedback, and they're not getting
I think you make a very good point of having that communication with the consumers and them being able to easily have that customer service, have somebody answer their questions. And like, I want to mention here that, that is how Giden is trying to help brands like yourselves, where we are trying to help your customers give these video reviews that you see playing in the background that kind of communicate their experiences of buying this company's furniture or hardware or lighting fixtures. And I think more and more companies should reach out to their buyers and their customers and have that relationship with them, so that they can, their customers speak for themselves even online, bringing that word of mouth digital.
for sure.
And like I think another point that you were mentioning was that we are in a culture of really just buying things, throwing them away, buying new things again, and not really thinking about quality and what we are doing to the environment. And I see in Coolikan's marketing, you stress the fact a lot of Coolikan's furniture is made in Canada and is eco-conscious. So why is that important? Why is that messaging important for Coolikan, for their audiences?
Yeah, it's the same reason that from the question before. I think we got to get away from from fast fashion. I get people investing in and considering prices when and I think any opportunity to reiterate the value inherent in that to the world, I think, is important.
That's awesome. Any last words that you have for your audience? Any last tips that you want to share? How can people find you? How can people buy Coolikan's furniture? How can they drop by at your showroom? Where can they stop by to check out some of Edwin chairs and your Palmerston stools?
Yeah, so studio, we have a showroom. People are welcome to come by. We're by appointment. That gives us the opportunity to make sure that what you want to see is out on the show floor and ready, that we can keep things clean and sanitized, and make you feel comfortable. Instagram is probably the greatest way to follow along with what we're doing. And yeah, check out our website. Almost everything you need to know is there, but we're also always happy to answer phone calls or emails. Yeah, send us a message. Send us a request for a quote, and we'll get back to you right away.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. This was such a pleasure having you guys and like educate us about small batch furnishing and why it's important.
Our pleasure. Thanks for organizing it.
Thanks,
Thank you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.